So you guys, I'm just, it's really nice to interview two beautiful, gorgeous couple who are on the same page. So yeah, so this is not a live, it's not live podcast.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you guys are ready, so what I'll do, I'm gonna stop my video
Okay.
and just go audio because it frees up the bandwidth.
Okay.
And then yeah, so then are you guys ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'll introduce myself and the show, and then I'll start. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop video.
I'm
Okay.
gonna get this. Same.
Okay. So recording.
Give me the record. No, it says it's recording.
Is she still there?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm just here. Okay. My name is Esmie Lawrence, and welcome to Sprinting to Success podcast. Today on the show, I'm interviewing a husband and wife team, Stephen and Sonji Millet.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
Hi, hi. So Stephen and Sonji are transformational speakers and life coaches. This couple have been through dysfunctional childhoods, multiple marriages, job displacement, bankruptcy, foreclosure, behind on taxes, and the challenges of co-parenting, depression, relationship friction. But individually and together, they overcame all by commanding themselves to talk straight. Damn it! Welcome to Sprinting to Success, Sonji and Stephen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So you guys been married for 11 years. How did you meet?
That's always a good question. We actually met. The only way people meet these days is online.
Blackpeoplemeet.com.
Oh, wow. That must have been interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yes. That was me overcoming one of my limiting beliefs because, back in the day, or at least 10 years ago, if you met somebody online, it meant that you couldn't do it in person. It was the last resort. But my girlfriend had decided that she was going to go on blackpeoplemeet.com, and she invited me to do the same. And I posted my profile, and we decided to get together, a bunch of my girlfriends, and just look at who had been viewing our post. And when I was online, my picture popped up in front of Stephen.
Yes, it did.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead, sweetie. You can tell that part.
And so when her picture popped up, I actually sent her a message, and we started IMing back and forth. And the funny thing about it is that Sonji and her girlfriends had two computers going at the same time. And on this particular site is that when someone looks at your profile, their picture pops up on your screen.
Also.
So her girlfriend's picture popped up on my screen, and so I shot her a message too,
Oh, wow.
So while we were there, I sent him an IM and said, how can you be talking to two women from the same city at the same time? And he couldn't figure it out. And then I had to tell him that she was sitting right here next to me.
Oh, busted.
Well, at that time I had to think of something to say. I couldn't just let that go. So I just shared with her. I said, you may not be familiar with internet culture. You chat with many people, but you only flirt with the ones you like.
And from that moment on, he's had my
I
heart
love
ever
that.
since.
So how long between when you message Sonja and before you guys end up meeting
The next
in
that
person?
Actually, like 2 days.
2 days later.
Wow.
That's-
So what do you call it?
That's
Love
that's
at first sight?
that's one of my internet dating tips. Is that once you meet somebody online, meet them in person right away, because you can find out more in 5 minutes in person than chatting behind a computer
For
screen.
months.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, like internet dating now. I mean, like it's just a thing now. People are doing it. It's not a big deal. But but back in the day, yeah, as you know, Sonja, you're right. People would frown on that because you meet people in person. You meet your friend of a friend of a friend, right?
Right.
All right. So I am going to ask. I'm not sure who wants to answer this, but tell me about your dysfunctional childhood. Like what happened there?
Well, when it comes to dysfunctional childhood, that would be my childhood, not Sonji's.
Okay.
Sonji was fortunate to grow up in the same house with the same parents and her two brothers.
And they still live there.
Nice.
And Now my childhood was quite different. I was, like I said, well, I always say I have 10 brothers and sisters, and that's between all my mama's husbands and all my daddy wives and girlfriends.
Wow.
I was moved back and forth across the country, from Massachusetts to North Carolina to Virginia to California, and all of this is by the time I was 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
And my mother had severe mental illness. They call it schizoaffective, which is paranoid, schizophrenic, and bipolar at the same time. So, to say the least, I had a very interesting childhood. We lived through all my mama's delusions of religion and God and everything else. And so, and I was meeting my brothers and sisters all along the way, picking up step brothers and sisters through the different marriages. And there was alcohol abuse, there was physical abuse through all these changes and challenges. And so I ended up dropping out of high school at an early age. I tried the Army, and Uncle Sam and I didn't see eye to eye, so he booted me out.
Yeah.
And so going through all of that trauma, even as an adult, I really embraced the idea of marriage. It took me a while to get it right. Sonji's my fourth wife.
I'm number last.
And the last. Yes.
So there was a lot of dysfunction there. And throughout my young adult years and even further on, I experienced bankruptcy, foreclosure. I was behind on taxes.
You know, you should talk about the birds on a wire.
Yes, one of the incidents growing up with my mom's delusion, God was speaking to her in so many ways, and the birds was one of them. And there was this telephone wire that went across the front of our house. And when birds would get on the wire, my mom said, whatever your question was, God was telling us the answer was no. If the birds were off the wire, the answer was yes. And consequently, we missed school some days because the birds sat on the wire. And somehow God had told her TVs and pictures were banned. We came home from school one day and she had threw away all the TVs. And my brothers and sisters and I at the time, we had 2 sets of encyclopedias. And because pictures were bad, we were made with a box of black crayons, go through 2 sets of encyclopedias and black out every picture.
You know, the part I like about his story is that as a child, he figured out that if he just waited until the birds were off the wire, the answer would always be yes. So he would sit there and watch and then ask the question after birds left the wire. And she would say, are the birds off the wire? And he'd say, yes, Mom. So he learned to adapt to his situation and to take the best from that situation and made it work for himself.
Right. Wow. So then, so as you got older, now, was there any resentment towards your mom?
Well, that kind of evolved because, see, I thought my mom was BSing us because she was brilliant, even though she was nuts. My mom was a registered nurse. She became a registered nurse in 1965. And there weren't a lot of African-American nurses in 1965. And she moved up through the ranks and she became supervisor, assistant director of nursing, director of nursing. And so every now and then she put her nursing outfit on, go get one of these great jobs and work for a while, and then come back home and get into bed for 6 months. And so I thought she was just BSing us and
making it up.
Yeah, you know, and so she put on her nursing suit and then, you know, get enough money. We moved back across the country and then she'd get back into bed.
So he didn't grow up hating his mom, which was the answer to the question?
No, I didn't.
He learned to appreciate that she was doing exactly the best that she could with what she had inside of her at the time.
Right, and so it's because she was sick, brilliant but sick, and I'm glad that you didn't resent her because you learn your lessons and hopefully you don't I mean, like in life, when you think about when you're young, and sometimes you don't understand the situation and what's going on in life, but as you get older, you learn those lessons. And sometimes you can't really put those lessons, into it doesn't make sense until you get older. And then maybe when you start writing a book or something, when you start evaluating your life and you realize that, okay, I got this lesson, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes, that my family makes. And so you move on, and you become better because of the challenges.
Yes.
And that's one of the chapters in our book, Who Told You That? Understanding that many of the things that are limiting us today are things that were told to us in our childhood, and we have just kept them and actually matured them into a belief that that probably isn't serving us today. So you have to understand where those limiting beliefs come from, and then you can acknowledge them and then look for new information. And so if you change your thinking, you can change your life.
Oh, definitely. And your childhood is a lesson. And but I think if you don't, as you said, if you don't analyze your childhood and learn from it and move on, then that you're going to be stuck at 5 years old or 6 years old or 7 years old, right? So you have to grow up and learn those lessons and move on and believe in yourself.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ask you about a question about marriage. What lessons did you learn after going through multiple marriages?
I learned. Oh, you're looking at me like I'm the only one that had multiple marriages. she only had two. I did have multiple. So I will address this question. What did I learned that you have to communicate what you're feeling and thinking. You can't assume that people know what you're feeling or thinking because they didn't have the same experience that you had. And so they may interpret a situation entirely different than you did. And so communication is the key. And I think I learned to become a better communicator and also share my thoughts and feelings and not just, do the man thing. Nothing will hurt me, I'm good.
And I would say I learned that you cannot come into this marriage assuming it's going to be the same as the last marriage. There were some things you learned back then, but this person comes with their own set of beliefs and the way they like things to be done and what they want to get out of the relationship. And if you carry that baggage from the past into this one, then you're not giving the current marriage the best that you can offer them.
Right. And so did you guys go through counseling before getting married?
We had the person who married us, our minister, he gave us some biblical counseling. I would say today, actually our son is planning on getting married soon. We believe that what people really need, what marriage couples really need, is to learn tools of communication so that they can, when things come up, when feelings well up inside or the past start to come to the forefront, how to express that in a safe, calm environment without attacking the other individual. And I believe that would be what most couples need today.
If I can jump back to your last question about one of the things I learned in the previous marriages is that when it comes to money, our money ideas were shaped by our upbringing, by either how much we had or how much we didn't have, and how our parents expressed themselves financially. And you can't assume that the other person had those same ideas and thoughts. Where in my mom or my dad's house, whichever one I was in, they believed in paying bills on time. And these are things that you have to talk about because some people, because of their upbringing, they never pay a bill on time. And that can cause extreme friction.
Especially, so you guys have to both be on the same ideas about what money is, and like almost like I think that because I remember when I was married, my husband's on has different idea about money than I did, and so sometimes when you're married, you don't realize the differences until it comes up.
Exactly.
We did this interesting thing when we were dating. We had a book of questions. This was a book that just had questions from everything from finances to how you feel about children and raising your family to sex. And it was just generic questions. So we would always open this book up and just wherever the page was, answer the question. So I couldn't know what questions to ask, but this book gave me a bunch to ask. So we just kept asking and working through those questions, and that helped me to understand him.
Right. And yeah, I think before people get married, they should have counseling. I wish I went through counseling before I got married, because the things that came up into my relationship, I didn't even think about until it came up. And I'm thinking, oh, you think that way? Oh, I think differently. You don't
Well,
realize this, And so another question here. What? So you went through job displacement and bankruptcy. What did that do to your mindset?
Ooh, I'll go with that one.
okay.
Because I've had 2 downsizings.
Yeah.
What that did for me, or my mindset, at first, it made me think that I wasn't good enough. It made me think that I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It made me feel helpless, those types of things. And I had to switch gears really quickly, because at the time I was a single parent, the only income, and to lose your job when you're the only income, that brings on a lot of baggage and a lot of inadequacies that will bubble up. But I thought about the situation. I got myself together. One of my friends, I think it was a guy I was dating, which I had to get rid of him. He's like, oh, you could just take the next month off and just relax and not do anything. And that wasn't the right mindset I needed to be in. What I needed to be in was in action, powerful actions, so that I could get over the depression. My husband just turned on a spotlight, and everything else that was going on. So when you have actions that you can continue to do, then you can keep moving. And as long as you get up and put one foot in front of the other and you start doing something, you will eventually come out of it. But if you stand still, if you stand in the story instead of on the story, you won't go anywhere. So we want you to be able to do some powerful actions and to get you moving forward. How about you, my love? The question was that what did being displaced from work,
How did that set
set
affect
with
my
you?
mindset? Well, my mindset was just on to the next thing. I think a lot of that came from my childhood, because it was so tumultuous and always changing. So it wasn't a devastating blow to me. It was just on to the next. So I oftentimes had to be creative in where I was going to work, what kind of job I was going to have, and just continue to move. So mine was just from a place of things happen and you just keep going.
Right. So you just moved on. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you guys have a blended family. What are the challenges of co-parenting?
My favorite challenge was feeding them.
She did a wonderful job doing it. This woman would cook 3 meats and 4 vegetables to make sure everybody had something they could eat.
Exactly. And we wanted to make sure that everybody felt a part of it. So when they came to my house, they would feel a part of the house. But when I got to that point where everyone would say, I don't like that and I don't want this, one day I decided that I was going on strike.
That was brilliant.
And I was not cooking for, I think it was like 4 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks in a row.
But it was 4 Mondays, because we only had the
Wednesdays.
The girls together, 4 Wednesdays, on Wednesdays, 1 day a week and every other weekend. So when they came down, I said, okay, you guys are going to fix the meal and you're going to consider your siblings' likes and dislikes. And after that exercise, they never complained again.
Really? They don't want you to go on strike again.
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to have to cook again, even if I did. They just did not want to do that sort of thing. So just making sure that they felt together. And it was difficult because we had different parenting styles.
Yes, we did.
So we were both open and honest with how we felt about things, but we knew that the other had our children's best interest at heart. No matter what was going on and whatever the outcome was, it wasn't that he was trying to treat my kids worse or I was trying to treat his kids worse than my kids. It was that we thought we were doing what was right, and we just had to have a conversation. Right. So we would retreat whenever we had a disagreement to our bedroom.
And talk.
And come out with a plan from there.
Wow. And that's good. So, and that's an example of, doing something different from the previous marriages, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
You have a book, Straight Talk, Damn It. That's what it's called.
Talk straight, damn it.
Look, and we're telling you, talk straight, damn it now.
That's the name of your book.
Yes.
And your subtitle for the book is How to Turn Negative Limiting Beliefs into Powerful Actions to Create a Life of Bliss How do you recognize that you have negative limiting beliefs?
Wow, that's a great question, and we actually had a really good discussion this morning during our what we call pillow talk, which you can read about in chapter 4. Uh,
Awesome.
is that oftentimes we don't even recognize what these limiting beliefs are, and they can be as subtle as my income is at this level, and this is the best I can do. My education was only so far, and this is where I can do. Or something as simple as money doesn't grow on trees, which can give you a sense of lack of money in the universe, so you kind of be a little more frivolous than you need to be. And so, first is identifying what the negative beliefs are. One of the things I had friends used to talk about, oh, the unemployment rate, when the unemployment rate was high, 8, 9, 10%. Oh, what are we going to do? All the jobs are gone. Wait a minute, hold it. If 10% of people are out of work, 90% of people have work. So all you got to do is be in the 90%. You only need one job. And so changing those kind of thinking will put you in the place to where you can move in a positive direction and get those kind of results.
And how do you recognize what they are? One, they're negative. If it says no, don't, I can't, those are going to be the beliefs that you want to tackle. This morning, our conversation, I recently got some information from work, and I didn't realize so deep that grew up that if you worked hard in your current position, they would promote you. And this changed, this whole concept changed. And when I realized that, I was crying about it, because it was like a part of me had died, because I had lived with that belief in my 27-year career in safety, health, and environment. And all of a sudden, in one instant, that belief is no longer true. And so sometimes you may feel this gut-wrenching, upset, crying tears. It's like something died and you're mourning the death of that thing. And when you feel that, that is a negative limiting belief that is not serving you in your current life.
One of the things that happens with negative limiting beliefs, it becomes part of our identity. And when that happens, it's much harder for people to recognize it, because, well, that's the way I am. That's just the way it is. And so sometimes they can be so ingrained in our thinking to where it's part of our identity. And like Sonji just said, it can be very emotional upheaving to happen for it to no longer be valid or true, and to let those go can be take some work to walk through it. And that's why we do our Talk Straight Damn It boot camp class, to help people dig down deep, because these negative limiting beliefs a lot of times are not just on the surface. They become a part of us.
And they're layered. Once you get rid of one, then the next one comes up.
Right. And if in order to be successful, you have to be positive, and you have to go after your dreams. And if you have negative limiting beliefs, it's going to stop you dead. It's going to stop you cold, so you can't move on, because it paralyzes you.
Yes, it does.
And I know that when I had limiting beliefs, and I just didn't think that I was good enough. And I always had this false image of who I am and myself, and even doing a Facebook Live, I was so afraid to do it, because I think people were gonna laugh at me.
Look, I'm raising both hands and I'm standing up straight on that one. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes, and then once I got the courage and said, yeah, I could do this. I had to shut down my negative limiting beliefs, and once I stepped into it and I did it, I'm thinking, oh my God, I felt free. I said, hey, nobody's laughing at me, and if they did, so what? Right? I can do this, and and so because and you have to take action. Once you take the action, then you realize that it gave me confidence, because I can do this. And so
go ahead.
And you become positive.
Exactly. Our definition of bliss. We have actual a definition, but the word bliss is an acronym for how to get rid of those negative limiting beliefs. The first B stands for being bold, making a bold decision. L means leveraging your situation, where you are right now and where you want to be. I means it take inspired action so that you can get moving, like we were talking about with loss of the job, just putting one step in front of the other. S is to put yourself first, because if your tank is empty, your emotional tank is empty, you can't help anyone else, and you really need to take time to recharge, to get you ready for what you have to accomplish. And then the last S is to start now.
Yes. Yes. And so I like that last S, because if you wait, you could wait a million years.
Wait till everything's perfect. Wait till I have enough money.
Exactly.
Wait till the
You
key.
You have to be. You can't, there's no such thing as perfect. Because when I stepped out, even if there's something as simple as doing a Facebook Live, when I stepped out, I'm thinking, oh, gee, I'll wait until this happens. I'm gonna wait until something, always make excuses. But once you step out, imperfectly step out, that's when it made a difference. Because I started, and once I started, on my journey, it was easier to keep going.
Exactly. And sometimes we need help, though, to keep going. We need an accountability partner. Stephen is my accountability. I am his accountability. That's where we support each other. But sometimes people don't have that. They have negativity all around them. So you may have to find a group, an accountability group, a team, a friend. It may even be family members. You need to find someone to help you keep going.
Oh, definitely. I went to the Lisa Nichols Speak and Write in 2017, and I came out of there with 7 accountability partners.
There you go.
And it's really is important, because sometimes when I'm feeling low, or just not feeling good, I can always call one of my partners and say, hey, so I'm feeling, and at the end of the conversation with them, they have uplifted me, they helped me, they set me back on my track.
Here's one tip that we started using. We use the electronics. And if I say this name, she's probably going to talk to us. We have an Alexa at our house, and we programmed her to tell us what we have as our goals, how we feel about each other. So every morning when we say, good morning, Alexa, she tells us things. So she kind of says, Sonji and Stephen, it's a great day. It's a day of bliss. Go out there and get that money. The world is waiting to hear your message. That type of thing to motivate us and keep us going, and kind of a little bit of an accountability partner in the electronic sense.
Right. And that, that's smart. I love that. And that's the reason why I read motivational books. I listen to motivation audio tapes, because it keeps me going. It keeps me focused on my goals. And because, as you said, if you're negative, you're gonna stop. But if you're positive and you remember your goals, you have to remember your goals. Somebody must say, remind you, these are your goals. Keep moving forward.
This is what you told me. Are you sure you're doing exactly what you said you wanted to do?
Exactly. Well, definitely. Just like when I told one of my accountability partners, I said, yeah, I was supposed to do a Facebook Live a month ago, but I chickened out. I couldn't do it. And she said, you need to stop this negative, you shouldn't stop this negative mindset and just do it. Do
exactly.
it.
Start now.
Do it now. Okay. So go back to the younger Stephen and Sonia, who felt afraid. What words of wisdom would you give yourself so that you can believe in yourself?
That's a good one.
Yes, that's a very good question.
The younger Sonia wishes that she knew about negative limiting beliefs. Our parents back in the day used negativity a lot, as a motivating factor. And I didn't realize that those beliefs would go up, when we say we don't want to be like our parents when we raise our kids. In actuality, we are attracting being like our parents to raise our kids, and we are continuing to do those things. But if someone had told me about being positive and attracting the life I want, I feel like I would have been much further along, but I don't get stuck in the land of shoulda, woulda, coulda, which is one of our chapters in our books. So I believe that everything that happened in my life is for a reason, and it was perfect in the way it occurred, because it did give me the lessons that I had. But just understanding being positive is much more 10x in my life. That would have helped me along.
Definitely. What about you, Stephen?
What I would tell my younger self is be confident in your abilities. I doubted myself quite often because of the lack of income growing up, being a high school dropout. And so I had a lot of, I guess, insecurities, a doubt about my abilities. Believe in yourself. Know that where you are is where you're supposed to be and move toward your dream. Many times people give up on their dreams, and I've had such occasions in my life, but I got a hold to them again later. Never give up on your dreams and continue to move toward them regardless of what people say.
Great advice. So this is the last question. You guys are very successful, but what are you still struggling with now?
So one of my things that I struggle with, and you may not be able to tell it from here, is telling my personal story in a more formalized way. So I am working, we belong to Toastmasters, and I have a support, an accountability group to help me get better at my speaking. And we also are working on building our business to be the best that it can be so that we can be ready to help millions of people when they come to us. So that's what I kind of struggle with, is my speaking. How about you, babe?
I struggle mostly with consistency. There's so many things to do in running a business. The calls, the follow-ups, the ask for the sales, the consistency in writing. We're writing, actually we're in the process of writing 3 more books right now. One being The Birds on the Wire, which is coming out at the end of the year. But being consistent with that, and setting aside time, because we can always get distracted with chores around the house, errands that need to be run. We can always come up with things that will keep us busy. And in that we self-sabotage. And so just putting it on the schedule and writing, just like it's a doctor's appointment. You're going to make it on time because they're going to charge you anyway. And so it's putting it on the schedule and realizing that it's costing me if I don't meet my appointments to be consistent in the business.
Yes. And we are both accountability for each other. Stephen helps me, gives me good feedback on my speaking, and I am the organized one, so I give him feedback on his organizational skills.
That's perfect. So you guys complement each other perfectly.
Exactly.
One last question.
Okay.
Last question. How do you guys decrease stress in your life?
How do we deal with stress?
Yes. How do you decrease stress in your life?
We put ourselves first. I get my hair done every week, and that's my time to get away from the job. I take care of my nails. I like shopping, and it's not the shopping in the stores. I like yard sailing and bargain hunting and things like that. So I'm always looking for, it's like a treasure hunt for me. So I know what I like, and a lot of women don't know what they like. And that's what helps me a lot. How about you, babe?
What I do to get rid of stress, I exercise, I read, and I look back at what I have accomplished, because stress oftentimes comes when you look at the things that you have not accomplished and are yet to get to. But when you take a minute and look at what you have done and what you have accomplished, and being thankful for that, that in itself relieves stress, because it takes some of the pressure off, recognizing you put forth effort and you do have some results you can hang your hat on.
Right, definitely. So what would you like to share with our audience?
Well, we have a course that's coming up, and if anyone is interested in attending, it's on our website at myblistopia.com. It's a 6 weeks online course where you get both of us to help you look at those negative limiting beliefs and develop a plan that is good for you, because my bliss is not your bliss, and we want to help you find your bliss.
Oh, perfect. So Stephen and Sonia, thank you for joining us today on Sprinting to Success podcast.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
us.
Thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
It was a pleasure.
It was fun. So you can learn more about Stephen and Sonia on esmielawrence.com. Thank you for listening to Sprinting to Success podcast with your host, Esmie Lawrence. For more episodes of Sprinting to Success, please go to esmielawrence.com. Thank you and have an amazing day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anytime. If there's another topic you want us to cover, we'd be more than happy to come back. This was a pleasure.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I definitely will have your information on my website. Yeah, so I'll be promoting your course.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good night. Bye.